I'm really glad you're here today because what we're talking about in this episode is something that affects every single one of us every single day, whether we realize it or not. Have you ever had one of those mornings where everything just spirals? The alarm goes off, you're already late, your phone is blowing up, the kids are yelling, traffic is a nightmare, and by 9 a.m. you already feel like you've lost the day before it even properly started? Yeah, me too. Most people have. But here's the thing I want you to sit with today. What if the problem wasn't the traffic or the kids or the emails? What if the real problem was simply that you never made a conscious decision, a real, deliberate choice to be in control of your day in the first place? That's what today's episode is all about. We're going to talk about 5 practices, simple, grounded, psychologically solid practices that will help you stop being dragged through your days and start actually leading them. Not perfectly, not on some aspirational future version of yourself, but you, today, starting tomorrow morning if you want. Let's get into it. Make positive affirmations. The first practice is one that a lot of people roll their eyes at when they first hear it. Positive affirmations. And I completely understand the skepticism, because in popular culture, affirmations have become kind of a joke. People standing in front of mirrors telling themselves they're amazing while their actual life is in chaos. That is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is something much more specific and much more powerful. There's a moment every single morning, right between when you wake up and when the full weight of the day lands on you, where you are extraordinarily free. The obligations haven't kicked in yet, the anxiety hasn't fired up yet, the notifications haven't started demanding your attention yet. That moment, even if it only lasts 30 seconds, is yours completely. What you put into that moment matters enormously, and here's why. A researcher named Robert Fritz, founder of a company called Technologies for Creating, spent decades studying how people actually achieve the things they care about. And his central finding was this: by making choices through positive affirmations regarding what you want, you move closer each day to attaining your goals. Now, notice what he said. He didn't say by feeling great about your goals. He didn't say by being optimistic. He said by making choices regularly, regardless of how you feel when you make them. Your job is not to feel amazing every morning. Your job is simply to keep choosing. So, what does an effective affirmation actually look like? A few key things. First, present tense. Not I will be confident someday, but I am someone who acts with confidence even when I feel uncertain. Not eventually I'll be more focused, but I bring my full attention to what matters most, right now. Present tense engages a completely different part of your brain than future tense. It's the difference between imagining yourself swimming and actually moving your arms. Second, specific. Not I am successful. What does that even mean? Instead, I bring my best effort to my most important work each day. Specific, actionable, something your brain can actually work with. And third, something you can genuinely believe, or at least genuinely aspire to. An affirmation that feels like an obvious lie will backfire immediately. Your brain is not fooled that easily. One affirmation that I keep coming back to, and that has helped a lot of people, is simply this: I choose to feel worthy and complete. Not perfect, not accomplished, just worthy and complete. Sufficient as I am to face what today requires of me. When you start from wholeness instead of starting from lack, when your first thought of the day is not, what do I still need to fix about myself, but I am enough to handle this, everything that follows is different. Your decisions come from strength rather than fear. Your interactions come from generosity rather than defensiveness. Your work comes from genuine engagement rather than anxious proving. Try it tomorrow. Before you reach for your phone, which I know is almost impossible, Just 30 seconds, 3 deep breaths, and then that sentence, spoken quietly or just held clearly in your mind. I choose to feel worthy and complete. See what it does to the first hour of your day.
Choose to trust yourself. Okay, second practice. And this one might be the most quietly radical thing I say today. Choose to trust yourself. Now, I want you to think about how often you actually do this, or don't. How often do you make a decision and then immediately start second-guessing it? How often do you know, somewhere in your gut, what the right move is, and then spend the next 3 hours looking for external validation before you'll let yourself act on it? How often do you reverse a choice the moment someone raises an eyebrow? That pattern of not trusting yourself is exhausting. It produces a constant internal friction that slows everything down. And the irony is, the more you seek external validation for your decisions, the less confidence you develop in your own judgment. It's a cycle that feeds itself. Here is what the research actually says about decision-making. A study from the 1940s, one of the early landmark studies of high-performing people, found something fascinating. These highly successful individuals across all kinds of fields reached decisions quickly and retreated from them slowly, if ever. They weren't reckless. They gathered information. They thought carefully about big choices. But once they decided, they committed. They trusted their judgment and moved forward.
And more recent research on intuition confirms this. When people make decisions based on instinct rather than endless analysis, they tend to end up happier with those decisions over time. Not because the intuition is magic, but because your intuition is not arbitrary. It is the accumulated product of everything you have ever learned, experienced, and valued. It is fast processing that arrives at conclusions your conscious mind hasn't caught up with yet. There is a point, and you can learn to feel when you've reached it, where you have enough information to make a good decision. And past that point, gathering more data, seeking more opinions, running more mental simulations is no longer improving the quality of your choice. It is just postponing it. And postponed choices accumulate as weight. They sit there, consuming energy and attention that could be going toward action. So here's a question I want you to sit with. When in your life have your instincts been right? Not when were you lucky, when were you right? When did you follow a feeling and it paid off? When did you trust yourself and it worked? Because that record exists, and you should read it more often. Trusting yourself is not the same as being certain. It never is. It is the decision to act on your best current judgment while remaining genuinely open to learning from what follows. That's the whole thing. You decide, you act, you learn, you decide again. That is the rhythm of a self-directed life. Part 3. Choose to feel at home. Third practice, and I want to start this one with a story. Some years ago, Maria Shriver, journalist, former First Lady of California, one of the busiest people in American media, was commuting weekly between New York and California, nearly 100 flights a year, which, if you've done any significant amount of travel, you know is a genuinely exhausting way to live. The logistics alone are enough to grind you down. And people kept asking her, how do you stay so grounded? How do you stay so present and calm given everything your schedule demands of you? Her answer was simple. Every Friday night, heading back to California, she took the same flight, same airport, same airline, same gate, same departure time. She even reserved the same seat. She often flew with the same crew. And she said, I feel at home the moment I board that plane. That seat, in the sky, is my sanctuary. I'm home there. Now, think about what she actually did. She didn't wait to feel comfortable. She didn't say, I'll relax when I get back to California. She created the conditions for home inside a situation that most people would experience as transient, stressful, and out of their control. She made herself the anchor rather than waiting for the environment to anchor her. And this is the principle I want you to carry with you today. You can feel at home without having to be at home. The feeling of ease, groundedness, of being in a familiar and safe space, that is not exclusively produced by a physical location. It is an internal state that you can learn to generate deliberately in almost any circumstance. A difficult meeting, a new city, a situation that feels unfamiliar or demanding. You can bring home with you into all of it. How? Start by identifying what specifically creates the feeling of home for you. For some people, it's sensory, a smell, a familiar object, a specific ritual. For others, it's relational, the feeling of being with people who know them and accept them completely. For others, it's a mental state, the feeling of permission to be exactly as they are without performing or pretending. Once you understand your own ingredients, you can start to carry them with you. The musician with a pre-show ritual that grounds them in any venue in the world, the executive who arranges every hotel room the same way before unpacking, the student who brings the same coffee and headphones to every study session. These are not superstitions. They are deliberate acts of creating portable home.
The deeper payoff is this. When you can walk into any room, any conversation, any difficult situation, and feel grounded because you are carrying your home inside you, you have achieved a form of freedom that almost nothing external can take away from you. You are no longer a person who needs the environment to cooperate before you can show up fully. You are the environment. That is real control. Choose to respond rather than react. All right, fourth practice. And this one is, I think, the one with the highest immediate daily impact once you start working with it. Choose to respond rather than react. Here's what I mean. Between every single thing that happens to you and every single thing you do next, there is a space. In most people, for most of their lives, that space is about a fraction of a second wide. Something happens, someone says something critical, traffic stops, a plan falls apart, and the reaction is already forming before the conscious mind has even registered what's going on. The defensive reply is ready, the jaw is tight, the story about what this means and who is to blame is already running. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, called the ability to choose your response in that space the last of the human freedoms. And he arrived at that insight in a Nazi concentration camp. If that freedom is available there, it is available anywhere. It is available to you, right now, in whatever situation you are in. In ordinary daily life, choosing to respond rather than react comes down to three things. First, awareness. The ability to notice in real time that you are having an emotional reaction, to feel the charge of irritation or anxiety rising and recognize it as an experience you're having, not a fact about the world. This sounds obvious, but it genuinely is not. Most emotional reactions feel, from the inside, like perceptions of reality. The anger feels like justice, the anxiety feels like wisdom, the contempt feels like clarity. Learning to see your emotional states as emotional states, rather than objective truths, is the foundational skill, and it takes real practice. Second, pause. Create a gap, even a small one. One slow breath before you respond to the difficult email, a count of 5 before you reply to the provocative comment, a brief excuse to leave the room for 2 minutes. These are not evasions. They are strategic uses of time to allow the rational, empathetic, long-term thinking part of your brain to catch up with the part that fires much faster and with much less wisdom. Third, choice. Once you've noticed the reaction and created a brief pause, you can actually ask yourself, what response would serve my values right now? Not what would feel most satisfying in the next 30 seconds. What would genuinely serve me and the other person and the situation over time? I want to be honest with you. This is hard. There will be days when the space collapses and you react before you can choose. That is not failure. That is being human. The practice is not in achieving perfection. It is in returning again and again, without drama, without excessive self-criticism, to the intention to choose,
rather than simply perform. Start with small provocations, the minor irritations that scatter through every ordinary day. Practice the sequence there. Notice, pause, choose in those low-stakes moments. And over time, as the new pathways strengthen, you'll find it available to you in the moments that matter most.
Maintain your choices over time. Okay, fifth and final practice. And honestly, I think this is the most important one because none of the first four mean anything without it. Maintain your choices over time. Here's the truth about change that almost nobody wants to hear. Beginnings are easy. The first morning of a new routine, the first week of a new practice, the inspiration phase when everything feels possible and you are energized by the novelty of what you are building. That part is not hard. The hard part is Tuesday 3 weeks from now, when nothing feels exciting anymore, and the old habits are calling, and the results of your new practices are not yet visible. That is where change actually happens, or doesn't. That is the real test. So here's what actually works for maintaining choices over time, and I'll give you 3 things because they're all important. First, stop relying on willpower. Willpower is a limited resource. It depletes with use. It's affected by hunger, fatigue, stress, and it is a genuinely unreliable foundation for long-term change. The people who successfully maintain positive practices over years are not on average people with superhuman discipline. They are people who have arranged their lives so that the desired behavior is the path of least resistance. Put your journal on your pillow. Block the distracting websites before the day starts. Remove the friction from the good habits and add friction to the bad ones. Change happens in the environment before it happens in the mind. Second, connect the practice to your identity. There is an enormous difference between I am trying to be more focused and I am someone who protects their attention as a valuable resource. One is a goal you are pursuing. The other is who you are. When the behavior becomes part of your identity, missing it feels not like failing to hit a target, but like betraying yourself. That is a much more durable form of motivation. And third, find one person who knows what you're working on and genuinely cares. Not to broadcast your self-improvement to the world. That tends to backfire because the social recognition gives you the feeling of accomplishment before the work is done. Just one person, a friend, a partner, a mentor, someone who will ask you honestly how it's going and tell you honestly what they see. We are social creatures. Our behaviors are deeply shaped by the people around us. Use that. One more thing before we close this out, and it's the most important thing I'll say today. You will have bad days. You will miss the morning practice. You will react when you meant to respond. You will drift for a week or two and feel like you are back at the beginning. That is not a sign that the practices don't work. That is a sign that you are human. The research on habit formation is clear. A single missed day has virtually no impact on long-term change. What matters is not whether you fall, it is how quickly you get back up. Notice what happened, learn what you can, return to the practice, move on. So let's bring it all together. 5 practices for taking command of your day. 1. Make positive affirmations. Begin each morning from wholeness rather than lack. Choose to feel worthy and complete before the world has a chance to tell you otherwise. 2. Choose to trust yourself. You already have more wisdom than you give yourself credit for. Act on it. Commit to your decisions. Learn from what follows. 3. Choose to feel at home. Carry your groundedness with you into every environment. Be your own anchor. Don't wait for the world to cooperate before you show up fully. 4. Choose to respond rather than react. In the space between what happens and what you do, however small that space is, you are free. Use that freedom. And 5. Maintain your choices over time. Build the structures, the identity, and the relationships that make consistency possible. Because consistency, not inspiration, is what actually changes lives. None of these require a perfect life to begin. None of them require you to be someone other than who you already are.
They require only a decision, made sincerely in this moment, to approach your days with a little more intention than you did yesterday. Your day is waiting. It belongs to you. Go take it.